Okay, I just learned how to work these things. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. Really looking forward to this conversation. Now that you're not running, I can say this publicly, I actually like this guy. We have already had a discussion prior to our conversation today, and we've agreed that since I spend so much time in Manzanita, I have friends in Manzanita, which is right next to Wheeler. In fact, the last time I was in the North Coast area, I stayed at the old Wheeler Hotel. And so once he leaves office, we're going to go to that area, have lunch together, and just talk about both of our careers. And hopefully we won't run into that guy with the logging outfit who talked about your great-grandfather there. But I want to start out by saying with all of your experience politically, why did you decide to walk away from this now? Get more into that.
Yeah, so I'm going to be very honest with you. Being mayor of Portland is a very time-consuming and taxing job. My daughter has been with me through politics since she was born. There's actually some pictures of her as a baby standing there while I'm being sworn into office, newborn baby. She's a senior in high school. I look forward to spending a little bit of time with her. But there's two other overriding reasons that are really the main reasons. And the first, to be blunt, is I'm burned out. I need to step away from it. This is a job that requires you to be 100% engaged 100% of the time, morning, noon, night, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, except leap years. And I can't imagine holding this level of energy for another 4 years. I think there's a lot of really good people who are running, who can do the job, and I think it's just time for me to step back and let somebody else step forward to take the ball from where we are here.
Do you anticipate being involved in public service in the future at some point?
I will always be involved in public service. I don't think I will ever be in elected office again. I've done it longer than I wanted to do it. There's many ways that you can serve the community, and I just feel like it's time for other people to step forward.
What do you want to accomplish in the last couple of months that you have?
Well, the first is to survive. I've made it this far. The second thing I want to do is just make sure that the programs that we've worked so hard to implement over literally years continue to operate. And as I hinted at during my speech, we're starting to wind down the programs that are in the mayor's office specifically and move them into the executive branch under Michael and his team, often with the support of my employees, many of whom want to continue to serve the city of Portland and serve the public. So I want to make sure that that piece works well, and I'm really determined that the charter transfer goes smoothly. And the third thing is I've already made a public commitment, not because I had to, but because I really believe in this. After a new council and a new mayor are elected in November, I want to work with them to help them transition successfully into City Hall. I don't feel like I got a good transition when I came in, and it made it really difficult because the issues don't stop, the calls don't stop, the concerns don't end. And so I want the city government to be a well-oiled machine. And so we're already establishing meetings. We've already reached out to a lot of the candidates and said, hey, on these days, we're going to do trainings, we're going to do information sessions. I hope to participate in some of those and just make sure that that transition works really well.
You're working with the Portland City Council with 3 candidates who are looking to be the next mayor of Portland. What advice would you give to any of them concerning how the role of the mayor will change with the new system and how they can adjust to it?
Well, it's an exciting opportunity for them. And they all know this. They've all been around for quite a while. It's exciting because they really get to shape it. This will be the first new mayor under the new form of government. They get to set the tone. They get to establish the culture. They get to really create the first impression of what this new role will include. And I've heard different philosophies and different viewpoints on that. General advice I would give that is based on 8 years of my term as mayor. Some of this was earned the hard way. Sometimes the best knowledge we have is the knowledge we earn the hard way. Number one, as mayor, if you want to be successful, give up the credit. This was a really hard one for me, I'll admit that. But you can't be a successful mayor if you don't give the credit to others, not just electeds, but people within the city infrastructure who really are working hard and doing the day-to-day work. And there's nothing that makes people feel better about the work they do than being acknowledged for that work. So that's the first thing I'd say. Ronald Reagan said a lot of things I don't approve of, but one of the things he said that I really agree with is he said you could get a lot done if you don't care who gets the credit. And that is true. I fundamentally believe that. The second of all is find common ground. In politics today, we're just being relentlessly divided. Compromise is increasingly seen as a dirty word. It's seen as a weakness. And it's funny to me because when I was a kid, compromise is what they called statesmanship. It was considered a good thing. Find the middle ground that brings everybody together and moves everybody forward. Maybe not as far as you wanted, maybe not completely in the direction you wanted, but under this new form of government, compromise is going to be especially important because the mayor's job will be to take policy that the city council has passed. The mayor doesn't get a veto. I think the mayor should have a veto personally, but that's not what the voters voted for, and implement it. And so the mayor, after the fact, doesn't get a say on what is passed. So the mayor has to be there proactively up front, meeting with people, collaborating with people. If he or she believes there's a policy coming that doesn't look like something they like, then they darn well better be in there shaping it as it is being shaped and proposed to the city council. So those are just a couple of things that I would suggest.
I'll ask that same question from the standpoint of the city councilors who are going to be elected. This is an entirely new system, as you outlined in your speech, going from 5 commissioners, which include yourself now, since you have a vote on the commission, to 12 city councilors who will now be the legislators, basically, of the city. So what advice would you give to those people going into a completely new system of government?
Don't become the Hunger Games, because that could happen. I mean, I can actually see a scenario where it comes district against district against district, right? I mean, we don't need that in city government. So there's going to have to, again, be some give and take, some compromise, so it doesn't just evolve into one district trying to get the resources away from other districts. We still have to think citywide. And one of the strengths of the current commission form of government is we're all elected citywide. So we have to balance the interests across the city. Going forward, only the mayor is elected citywide. So the commissioners are going to be relentlessly focused on the needs of their district representatives. And I think here's an example of where the city maybe could learn something from the county and the district commissioners at the county, how they navigate those differences of districts in order to move the county forward in a positive way.
What would you look at as among your greatest accomplishments during your terms?
Honestly, I will look back and say that I led the city through probably its most tumultuous period in its history. We refocused city government to address the new challenges that we faced. We brought along the community with those strategies, and those strategies by and large are successful. They are working. And as a quick second to that, I stuck with it. You know, I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to run for re-election. And I decided it wasn't good for the city to have 4 mayors in a row who were one-term mayors. I stuck with it. And I'm glad I did, to be honest. with you.
When you look at that time in 2020, you referred to that, the George Floyd protests, the problems with Antifa. How much did the damage that did to our national reputation, how much did that affect you personally?
Intensely. Intensely, and not just because I was mayor, it really angered me as a Portlander. Look, Portland's an amazing city. It's been historically an amazing city. We had such an incredible run, and all of a sudden, we were like the butt of every joke. We were the recipient of every criticism. We were the poster child for every single failure. And I can tell you honestly, it impacted me significantly. But again, sort of getting back to my constitutional makeup, if you want to motivate me, punch me. I don't walk away. And I feel like we had an administration that worked well. I put together a fantastic team of like-minded individuals, most of whom are in this room. And we just kept our head down and we kept moving forward. And we sort of ignored the hysterical negative narratives. And here we are today, I think, in a much better place.
When you look also towards the future, and you talked a little bit about what many people perceive as the disconnect between the city of Portland and Multnomah County, and I see Chair Jessica Vega Peterson is here. Are we on the right track to remedying that disconnect? Where do you see that headed in terms of being able to solve the problems that Portland especially faces?
I do believe we are on the way to resolving the disconnect. Again, they are different organizations with different missions and therefore different cultures. So there is a clash of cultures. And having once run the county many years ago, I can tell you that people who work for the county are there because they want to help people. They want to help vulnerable populations. They are professionals who work in very specific areas like mental health or youth services or aging services. And they see that as their primary mission in life. And not only are they professionals, they have access to streams of funding like Medicaid and supportive housing services dollars, things that the city doesn't have access to. And so we at the city level, I think, understand we have to work with the county. There's no way we can go it alone and be able to address things like mental health and addiction and whatnot. On the other hand, the county has moved a lot, and I'm grateful for that. When I, 8 years ago, was trying to even get support for more shelter, it was a hard no. I mean, just philosophically, the county was, no, we're focusing on housing development. We're not interested in wasting money on shelters, and we're not going to deploy our human services for shelter work. That's not what we do. The county has shifted. After we did the proof of concept with the first task site, the county put $20 million into that task site, and as I say, through the Homeless Response Action Plan, the county is now a partner in what we're trying to do in terms of getting chronically homeless folks who are unsheltered off our streets. Now, are we completely unified? No. There are still disagreements, but that's life. Government has disagreements, and it's not our job to walk away when we have disagreements. It's to keep leaning in and figuring out how do we resolve those disagreements and move forward. I'll just tell you, where we are today is so much farther ahead of where we were 8 years ago that it's night and day. And I believe that that trend will continue.
I asked you what you felt your greatest accomplishments were. What do you wish you had or had not done during your time as mayor?
There's two things I deeply regret. And I know elected officials aren't supposed to ever talk about this, but I feel this way, and sooner or later you're going to find out because I'll tell you anyway. Number one, the school districts asked us to remove school resource officers from the schools. That should have been a hard no. We should never have removed the school resource officers from the schools. And I'm really pleased that Chief Bob Day is working proactively and productively with all of the school districts in the city of Portland to reinstate public safety in our schools. I don't want to break any news except to say, given the amount of violence we're seeing nationally, and a lot of it is focused on our youth, in schools and in the vicinity of schools, we have an obligation, I believe, to step forward. That's the first thing. The second thing is the public safety ordinance that I attempted to pass back in, I think it was 2017. And the goal of it was, we knew online Antifa and the Proud Boys were threatening each other. You could see it in the online flow. They were threatening to meet in certain locations in our city and have brawls with each other, potentially with shanks and firearms and whatnot. Knowing that, I wanted to pass an ordinance that would give us a time, place, manner, capability to keep those parties separated that had willfully said that in advance the purpose of their meeting was to engage in acts of violence. And I lost that vote 3-2. And I suspect if I brought that ordinance back today, if we had similar circumstances, the council would quickly pass it on the consent agenda and nobody would testify against it except maybe 2 people. So those were the 2 that, from my perspective, got away. There's another thing, I don't know if it's something I regret, but it's just a question that weighs on me, and those of you who hold elected office, it probably weighs on you too. What is your job? Is your job to pick a North Star and hold the line and lead to that North Star, or is it your job to represent the immediate passions and interests of the people you serve? In other words, if the public changes their mind about something, do you, as their elected representative, have an obligation to also then change the policies that you are enacting? When I took this job, I used to believe that I was a representative of the people, that my job was to reflect the passions of the people, even if they shifted and changed. But after what I've witnessed, I'm not sure I feel that way anymore. I actually think that it's better to set a North Star, run on that North Star, explain why you are chasing that North Star, and then hold the line. And if by the time you get to the North Star, people still disagree, well, then you can change your mind then. But don't shift midstream. And with the real social disconnect that took place in this country, in the state, in this community in 2020, I felt like there was a little bit of shifting around. And I think we as leaders should really stay the course and provide some level of stability. That's not to say shut down opposing voices, but I don't think you should wholesale shift direction as a result of those voices. That's just my personal view, and I think there's probably really smart people in this room who would completely disagree with what I said, but that's my own personal reflection.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I see that Andrew is hovering, so I guess this conversation is over. I look forward to our lunch in Wheeler after you leave office, and thank all of you who stuck around to listen.